Hello, hello, everyone. Greetings to all. Uh, we will be starting shortly. Today's topic is in English, which greetings to all. Greetings to all. I had a little mishap on YouTube on Facebook, but we're here. Thank goodness. We'll start shortly. If you guys could share the link, if you have shared, I would appreciate that. That would be great. Today we have interesting. Well, every week I feel like what we talk about is interesting. Today I'll be taking a more hello Hanna Fork. Hello, hello. I'll be taking a less popular approach. Uh, and as usual, we'll have conversations and discussions. And if people feel free to um, raise questions and whatnot, you can do that. Uh, hello, Hannah. አሜን አሜን። እንኳን አብሮ አደረሰን።
ሰላም ነው።
እግዚአብሔር ይመስገን፣ እግዚአብሔር ይመስገን።
አይ ከስባኝ ሰላም ነው ባለ ብዬ እንጂ ከታች ነው የምሰማው ባበረ።
ችግር የለውም። እዚህም መሆን ትችያለሽ። ችግር የለውም።
ሰላም ነው አይደል?
እግዚአብሔር ይመስገን፣ ሁሉም ሰላም።
ግን በዚሁ አጋጣሚ ካገኘው መምሪ አንድ ስራ እንሰራለን የሆነ አብነት ትምህርት ቤት በጣም መጽሐፍ አጥተዋል የሚበረታተዋል እና በዚህ ዙሪያ እንሰራለን ወራታለሁ በውስጥ።
እሺ፣ በውስጥ ጻፊልኝና
እሺ መምሪ ከታችኛ ልስማ። በጣም ነው የምከታተለው።
ሰላም፣ ምንም ችግር የለውም። All right. The topic for today is race and Christian history. More importantly, we're asking what role did race have to play in early church history? This is, like I said, a non-popular position that I'll be taking today. But I hope we'll be engaging and having conversations. And almost immediately, I know the type of questions that usually are generated from doing a topic like this, which is who cares? Salam Ethiopia Hagare and Henry. Hello, hello. More specifically, I'm interested in how race was dealt with early Egyptian authors. No, I'm not a Sigma. And this is going to be like I said, a non-popular position because a lot of the times when we think about our connection with the Egyptian church, we think of them as the mother church. So a lot of people have kind of like accepted that we are in union and we're one in faith. So people kind of look the other way. As you will see today, I do not. And I'll be looking at some texts and looking at how the issue of race, particularly the Black race, specifically the Ethiopian race, was dealt with. How did they understand it? And this is going to be a two-part series. At first I wanted to kind of condense everything and bring it all together, but I started to recognize like it's going to be difficult to do that. So what I'm doing instead is I'm going to break it up. I'm going to break it up, and then we're going to do this over a 2-week period so that we can really sink in and really understand a lot of the things that we're talking about. If you're new to my channel, I ask you humbly to follow me, and then to share this link with others, with friends, and also to like as well, both on Facebook and YouTube, or if you're on TikTok, because that does really help. Your support means a lot. I think this is like the 5th or 6th week that I've been doing this, and I wouldn't have been able to keep going if it wasn't for the positive love and support that I've been getting from all of you guys. So I can't say enough. Genuinely, I thank you. I thank you for all the positive comments as well as the negative ones. And I will say, this past weekend, it was very refreshing to hear some non-Ethiopian members telling me that they actually are following this program. So that's like music to my ears, right? Because quite honestly, it is a lot to come here twice a week. I come here twice a week to talk about history, and I cover the same subject. And sometimes I'm like, are people even paying attention? Do people even care? So when I see the support, it gives me more energy, more than anything else, to see that people are learning, right? That gives me all the energy that I need to keep going and to keep bringing new material to you. So today, like I said, I'm going to take a non-popular position, and I wonder what people would have to say. This is based on my research. I just want to say that what I would talk about today is not the official stance of the Orthodox Church. Although, again, if you're new to my channel, I wear this robe because I am a deacon of the church, and it's not something that I'm embarrassed of. I want to bring that up front. So who you're dealing with is somebody who is of the tradition. I don't claim that I'm a deacon to kind of flex my knowledge about, whatever that I'm here to say, but it's simply to say that I am of the tradition, and that's not something that I'm hiding, right? So a lot of the times people wonder, hey, this guy might have a hidden agenda. Well, I'm letting you know what my agenda is. I am in the church. I am a deacon. I am, and that's who I am, and I don't hide that. At the same time, I do go. I am in academia, and I'm learning this thing as well. So I study this stuff from a perspective of academics, but I'm also in the tradition. So I study it from within the tradition as well. So with that being said, I started this series again to really talk about history. I think there's the way we understand history is fundamentally wrong, and I'm making major claims because I think there's a different way to approach history, and that's what I'm trying to do here. Those of you who've been following along, the greatest compliments I can get is, hey, you have a unique way of looking at history. You think outside the box. Like when I hear these terms, they're, again, exactly what I'm trying to do, right? I'm trying to bring a different perspective, a different way to do history. I'm not here to tell you that my views are 100% correct and mine is, the end all be all, but I am here to tell you, hey, this is the way I see things and this is how I get here. Most of the time I talk about traditional forms of understanding history, and then I compare it against the academics, and then I say, here's the middle ground. Today it's a little bit different. I will talk about the tradition shortly, like just kind of overview, and then I'm going to talk about my own research. This is not anything you're going to find in other textbooks. I haven't found like an extensive research on it. This is something I really took passion about, and I started digging up and really investigating. And this is my perspective, my view, my research. Perhaps I should publish it before going on social media. But again, I don't do the things that I do to get popular, to get fame. I do it so people can learn. So if you go away today learning, mission accomplished. I'm happy. So the goal, again, the topic for today is what role did race play in early church history, particularly in the writings of early Egyptian fathers? This is the question I'm asking. Having said this, I do want to make a disclaimer because, like I said, I am of the tradition, and I do believe we believe one holy Catholic Apostolic Church, and that one holy church refers to the Coptic Orthodox Church, the Indian Orthodox Church, the Syrian Orthodox Church, the Coptic Orthodox Church, the Eritrean Orthodox Church, the Armenian Orthodox Church. So we are sister churches. We are one in faith, one in tradition. Our expressions of the faith might be different, but our dogma and our understanding is the same. So I am talking about a sister community. We are not one with the Greek Orthodox Church. More importantly, when I talk about this, I am very much cognizant that there may or may not be Coptic Orthodox Christians listening to me. And this is not at all, I don't want to believe this is at all an evaluation of the current Coptic Church, and nor would I make strong claims against the Coptic Church as a church. I won't do that because it's my church. The Coptic Church is my church. But my critique today, and I hope people understand the difference, is not even on the Coptic people, but specifically on the writers of the early Coptic church fathers. Specifically, the writers of the early Coptic church fathers. It's not on the tradition. It's not on the church. It's not on the doctrine. It's not anything about what the church represents, because the Coptic Church is my church. So I can't criticize myself. But I can refer to specific people and specific ideology that existed, particularly starting from the first couple of centuries after Christianity. So let me back up. What is the tradition? I'll give you kind of the overview of what the tradition says. And today is the first part of a 2-week series. So if you're going to join this, I beg you to do both weeks before you kind of walk away and say, okay, I got everything I need to get. So today we're just looking at the first part. So what is the tradition? The tradition says, we looked at how Christianity entered Ethiopia last week. I'm not going to get into that, but 4th century is an important century because this is when King Izana is said to have converted after Frumentius, who is a foreigner who comes into Ethiopia with his brother Odysseus. He teaches the Ethiopian emperor Izana Christianity. And we're told from the tradition that Frumentius goes to Alexandria, which is Egypt, to let Alexandria know, hey, these Ethiopians, they're believers. They need bishops. They don't have bishops. And Frumentius, when he goes there, he meets Saint Athanasius of Alexandria. So to Frumentius's surprise, Saint Athanasius says, look, I'm going to ordain you as a bishop to go to the Ethiopians so that you can minister to them. And then Saint Frumentius, who is Abba Salama Kasate Ibrahim, comes to Ethiopia and he preaches. Based on this tradition from the 4th century on, there is this like connection, ecclesiastical connection made between the Ethiopian church and the Egyptian church. For this reason, up until 1959, I believe it is, the Ethiopian church, from the 4th century all the way to 1959, the Ethiopians used to receive bishops from the Coptic church. This is a tradition. My question today is, what is the actual story about Frumentius? What actually happened? More importantly, between the story of Frumentius, Frumentius Basalama, and what he did and how the story was reserved, is it the same? So let me back up. The story of Frumentius, we know about this character, Frumentius, because a man by the name of Rufinus, told us the story, having heard it from Rufinus. And this story is recorded in a book called Socrates Scholasticus in chapter 1, book 1, chapter 19. And the book was originally written in Greek. This Greek text is then translated into Ge'ez. What I'm interested in is, how is the Greek compared against the Ethiopic? And we're going to look at that today. There's a huge reason why I want to look at this. Apologize. Give me one moment here while I thought I had everything ready. But of course, when it comes to these things, there's a few things that I didn't get. Okay. This is what I want. Okay. So let me share my screen. I have a lot of things going on here. All right. So here, you guys can see this book, Ecclesiastical History of Socrates. By the way, when I say Socrates, I'm not talking about the philosopher who is during the era of Plato. I'm talking about the historian Socrates from the 4th century, who recorded early church histories in his book. Now, what we're interested in is in book 1, chapter 19. It's somewhere around here. Okay, there it is. If you guys could see, book 1, chapter 19, we have the story of the Frumentius and how they entered Ethiopia. Frumentius and Odysseus, if you guys could read it here. Frumentius and Odysseus. So what is interesting here is, I'm not going to read the whole story. Instead, I'm interested in the conclusion, particularly starting from Tauta here, from this region right here. Now, Greek word order is a little funky, but it's just going to have to do for now. It reads the following. So it tells you the whole story from Frumentius, how he went to Athanasius, came back as a bishop, and preached to Ethiopia. And then it says, Tauta de ho Rufinos parato idisiu husterion kai auto aerosiones axiothentos ente turio Akekoenai, facing. Like I said, my Greek is really rubbing off, but I'm doing the best that I can here. So please don't laugh at me. Translation. And Rufinus, facing, said Tauta these things. Akekoenai, having heard it from Odysseus, whom later on he himself was deemed worthy to be a priest in Tyre. All right, this is how this story concludes. Rufinus said these things, Tauta, Akekoenai, having heard it paratu Odysseus, from Odysseus, who later on he himself, Autu, was made worthy Axiothentos, a priest in Tyre. This is the Greek version that Socrates writes down of the events about Izana and Odysseus, or sorry, Frumentius and Odysseus. This is the Greek version. This is the Ge'ez version. This is the Ge'ez version. وزنت كله زنا وأحدوز سمو رفنوس بأنت فريمناتوس بأنت فريمنتيوس أبونا ساميو أم Odysseus كالو زنت كله زنا. One man whose name is Rufinus, وزنت كله زنا, he told us all these things about Frumentius, our father, Samio and Odysseus, having heard from Odysseus, the second one, Zanta Kulozino, he told us all these things. This is the Ge'ez. Then there's a lot of stuff here. Like you may not read Greek or Ge'ez, but you can tell, like, this is where the story ends. And here's the Greek version. Here we have the same thing going on here. My question is, what is all this? What is this? What is this doing here? Who added it? What is this addition? Why is this needed? See, this is the first headache that I had. Why add all these things? Why was this necessary? This is what started my long journey to research the material that we're looking at. Now, when you go and translate it, the translation comes, that extra addition that we saw in the Ge'ez that doesn't exist in the Greek, says the following. One man whose name was Rufinus reported all the matters about the father of Frumentius, having heard it all from another man named Odysseus. This is what we just saw. Then it says, this is our father Frumentius, the first bishop for the land of Agazi. The first bishop for the land of Agazi, the other name for Ethiopia. While he was in the land of Greece, he was appointed for the land of Agazi. And here as well, in the diptychs, we find it inscribed that he was the first. He was the first good yeast that came to the land of Agazi. He was the first good yeast that came to the land of Agazi. This is not at all in the Greek. I'm gonna let people join, but I just ask that you keep it on mute. Thank you. Why add this? Why add this bit? What is it contributing to our knowledge? Well, there's a few things that we understand here. The first thing that it's being emphasized in the addition that is not in the Greek is that Frumentius is the first bishop. Why emphasize that? Then we're told His name is added into diptychs. Diptychs is like this way of writing like the important people that existed usually in the Coptic tradition. Then it says he was the first good yeast. What does yeast do? Kind of bring things alive. That came to the land of Agazi. He was the first. It wasn't Bacchus. It wasn't the Ethiopian eunuch. It wasn't Minilik. We believe in the tradition. We believe in the tradition. Don't ask me historically, but we say in the tradition, Christ came to Ethiopia. We make that claim. It wasn't Christ, but it was Frumentius, a foreigner who happened to be appointed by the Egyptian bishop. What is the takeaway message? The implicit thing that they're telling us here is, you Ethiopians, I want y'all to remember that we gave you bishops. We are the one who allowed you to have bishops. Based on this, you have to get bishops from us from now on. Keep in mind, this edition was never in the Greek. This is something that existed in the Ge'ez, not in the Greek. So for centuries, Ethiopians believed that they had to. They had to. I know we're going to talk about Photanagas next week. I'm fully aware of what it says in the Photanagas. If there's some scholars here or people who've done a lot of reading, there's even worse things in the Photanagas. Trust me, I'll get into that. But what I wanted to get into today is, from the beginning, from Fremnatos' period, it starts off by adding something that wasn't in the Greek. For those of you who don't know, we didn't just get bishops from Egypt. In order for a bishop to be received, the Ethiopians had to send money. They had to send elephant trunks and teeth. They had to send many things. Again, these are things that we're going to review next week. So the motivation is there, but usually this is where it stops for a lot of people. Like when we ask about why would the early Egyptian people add this thing into the text, a lot of people say, well, for money, they were getting money and this and that and this. But I want to go further than that. See, when I started reading a lot of texts from the Egyptian early church fathers, and if you guys don't know, there's a subtext known as the Desert Fathers, the saying of the Desert Fathers. I loved reading those. And I remember reading through them, and I would notice that a lot of, like, if they were like two characters and one of them was like bad, he was usually black, if not Ethiopian. So I started asking, what is the motivation, like, to begin with, to dislike Ethiopians? And I found the answer, I think, in the anonymous sayings of the Desert Fathers. Again, I don't want to make you think that I'm making these things up, but these are texts that are currently being read in the Coptic circle, even by Ethiopians. And while we are reading this, I want us to understand about what is the takeaway message. Like, what is the purpose? What is the goal of having these things written here? And is there an active movement to fix it, rectify it? And these are kind of the questions that I really want to think about. So let me share my screen so you guys could see the texts for yourself. So here's the anonymous sayings of the Desert Fathers. You guys could find it online. And you guys can read it. So what we're interested in is, by the way, this is in Greek and English, but for right now, I'm only concerned in the English. So I'll stay with the English. So let me go down to the part that I'm looking for. 565. So this is a section of this story where a bishop is said to have been giving Holy Communion. And while he's giving Holy Communion, he's startled. I'm not going to read you the whole thing. You could read the whole story on your own, starting from 563. You could read the whole thing, right? You guys have it here. But if you go down to 565, he sees some black people and he's startled. And then an angel is revealed to him. Then I'm going to read it from here. It might take some time, but today all we're doing is like reading texts, right? We should be able to read together. It says, sorry. Then the bishop said to the angel, "Now tell me about the difference in the faces, I beg you, to what kind of transgressions each of them is subject, so that learning about these, I might be released from all ignorance." He's saying, teach me about the different faces. The angel of the Lord said to him, "Those with bright and shining faces are living in sobriety, purity, and righteousness. They are modest, compassionate, and merciful. Those who have black faces," not black souls, not metaphorically black, but black faces, right? It's saying black faces. It's not an attitude, economic empire. They're saying black faces are the works of porneia, licentiousness, and other kinds of profligacy and wantonness. Those who appear bloodshot and fury are living in knavery and wrongdoing. They're abusers, blasphemers, treacherous, and murderers. And again, the angel said to him, "So now help them. If you desire their salvation, for this," he said, "is why you attend your own prayers, so that learning by seeing the sins of those under instruction, you may by counsel and exhortations make them better through repentance in Jesus Christ our Lord, who died and rose from the dead for them. And as much as you have strength, zeal, and love from your Lord, your Master Christ, take every care of them to turn them away from their own transgressions towards God, persuading them of what kind of transgressions they are subject to, and let them not despair of their own salvation. For from this there is both salvation of the soul for those repenting and turning towards God, and the enjoyment of good things to come. And there is a great reward for you in having imitated your own Lord and Master, who for the salvation of men left the heavens and men as sojourn on earth." So here we have a case where the angel is letting the man say, it was written in an early period. I'm not sure exactly what period it was written. But here, according to the this text, the anonymous sayings of the Desert Fathers, people who have black face, not black attitude, not like darkness because of sin, metaphorical black, but having black sin, the testimony of being sinful. To me, that is the definition of racism. That is the definition of racism. And we can try to do like gymnastics. Like a friend of mine, whenever he comes across difficult texts, he always tells me don't do brain gymnastics, right? So and then the question is, could it be the Nubians were not Christians by then? As far as I know, Nubians were never Christians. But I'm not done yet. I'm just getting started, by the way. So we find a problem in their philosophy behind what black is. This is a testimony to their philosophy about black people. So it doesn't surprise me then that when it comes to the story of Frumentius, they needed to find a reason to add a few things in there to make the Ethiopians inferior to the Coptic community. But that's not where it stops. If you're going to come in, I just ask that you keep yourself on mute. People keep asking me, and by the way, this question of Nubian it has come up a lot. But that's not where it stops. I was interested about the saints. Moses, finish it. Type it up here. Moses the what? What is he called? Moses the what? Moses the what? Or in Amharic, Muse? Who? Who do we call him? The black. The black. All right. So my question is, or the Ethiopian, yes. We call him Moses the Ethiopian, which also means black. If we can mute, thank you. So I was wondering, we have Basil the Great. We have Leo the Great, Anthony the Great. Why Moses the Black, right? And I was asking around, and a lot of people, a lot of Ethiopians told me that in the tradition, it is common to refer to people by their disability, Didymus the Blind. And I was shocked because that means, if this is true, yes, Didymus the Blind, he was blind, so he was called, oh, so-and-so the blind. But that also means that they interpreted his blackness as a disability. That's actually a very bad thing. If this is actually the case of why they called him the Black, Moses the Black, because they saw him as having some deformity, that's even like worse in a lot of ways. But I'm not here to give you like, personally, I think we should call him Moses the Great, Moses the Amazing, Moses the Wonderful. Why Moses the Black? Although, of course, blackness is not negative, so I don't mind calling him black. But I do wonder why they called him black. And again, we find the answer in the sayings of the Desert Fathers. Again, I don't want to show you my interpretation. I want to show you what the text itself has to say. Sorry. The sayings of the Desert Fathers. Right? When we go to the section that we want to go to, page 139, we could start reading from here. Sorry. Yeah. So this is the section that other like Egyptian fathers, they're trying to test the spiritualness of Moses. They're trying to like they're trying to test his ability. And right before he was about to be ordained, the archbishop said to him, See, Abba Moses, now you're entire. Oh, no, this is not it. Yeah, the archbishop said, see, Abba Moses, now you're entirely right. The old man said to him, it is true of the outside, Lord Father, but what about him who sees the inside? And then he goes, wishing to test him, that is Moses, the archbishop said to the priest, when Abba Moses comes into the sanctuary, drive him out and go with him to hear what he says. Drive him out. They want to test his spirituality. So the old man came in and they covered him with abuse and drove him out, saying, outside, black man. Going out, he said to himself, this is supposed to be Moses the Black. They have acted rightly concerning you. He's saying to himself, for your skin is as black as ashes. So what Moses is saying here is, it is correct that they kicked me out. They did a good thing. Why? You are not a man. By the way, some translations say you're not a white man, right? That's kind of the idea. So why should you be allowed to meet men? All right, let's review that. So Moses is about to get ordained. They want to test his spirituality, and they go and they say negative things to him. You get out, you black man. And then Moses the Black says they acted correctly. And this is recorded in the saying of the Desert Fathers. What's the takeaway message? The takeaway message is Moses the saint is righteous because he agreed. He agreed with the assessment that because he was black, he wasn't deserving of what the other monks had. That's what gave him his spirituality. One time I wrote about this on social media, and a Coptic brother reached out to me and he said, why are you talking about this? And he was like, isn't it spiritual for someone to endure hardship, like injustice? Like when somebody curses you out, you don't curse them back. You staying quiet is a virtue, it's a positive virtue. And my response to this was, exactly 100%. I couldn't agree more. I agree. When someone says negative things, when injustice happens, one of the acts of virtue is to stay quiet and pray about it and keep it to yourself. I agree. The problem with this text is it's not that Moses saw the injustice and said, man, they're doing something wrong to me, but I'll pray for them. Oh, my brothers have fallen, and let me pray for them. He's agreeing with the injustice according to how the text was written. My claim here, I want to be very clear, it's not a critique against Moses the saint. It's a critique against whoever wrote this. And we need to have we need to divorce the story of Moses the Black or Moses the Saint from whoever wrote this story. That's the claim I'm making. Because this doesn't represent me. This does not represent me. And this, I can say boldly, is not written by the Holy Spirit. It's not inspired by the Holy Spirit. And this is the problem. Nowhere in the Bible does it tell us to agree with injustice. Nowhere in the Bible does it say agree when wrong things are happening with you. You could pray for those causing the injustice, but never does it say agree with injustice. The Bible says fight for justice, speak for truth, speak for equality. This warped perspective of race is a reoccurring theme in early Egyptian fathers. But here's the thing. I'm not done yet. There's more. One of the things, particularly by those who study theology, that and yes, Joe, the whole turn the other cheek thing doesn't work here, because they're not saying Moses is not saying they did, like, when you hit me, I would never agree that the fact that you hit me was a right thing. The Bible never tells you to do that. It tells you to recognize the hit was wrong. Even though what you did was wrong, out of spirituality, I'll continue to love you. That I could get on board with. But it never tells you when you hit me, I should agree with the fact that that hit was deserving. There's nothing in the Bible that says agree with injustice. Nothing in the Bible that says agree with injustice. Moving on. By the way, when people say, like, you're crazy, like my friends say, you've lost your mind, I'm like, yes, I have. It's because I've been reading texts like this, and it hurt. It physically hurts when I talk to people and they don't understand why this is important. This is extremely important. These are things that need to be addressed. But I digress. Sorry. I am a little crazy. But it doesn't stop here. As I was saying, there is some people, especially people who study theology, who tend to gravitate towards certain authors, particularly Saint Origen. Now, Saint Origen is not canonized in the Orthodox Church. Exactly. He's not ordained. Thank you. He is ordained, or he's canonized, I think, in the Catholic Church. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he is. But in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, he's not canonized. And yet a lot of people refer to his text, which is fine. I guess we could read whatever text we want, but we have to understand he's not canonized. But one particular text that I found he's not canonized in the church. Oh, interesting. Okay. I always thought he was canonized in the Catholic Church. I don't know why. Thank you for that, Weddi. Oh, thank you. Okay, well, this is a lesson for me. Thank you so much. Okay. I'm glad to know that I'm not crazy. but when it comes to Origen, he is cited quite a lot. And he is an important person nevertheless. And he has provided commentaries on various texts, including the Songs of Songs, as you guys could see. Somebody on YouTube just said Catholics canonize anything, so it's a fair assumption. I genuinely thought they were they had canonized Origen. Honest mistake. Okay, so as we know, in the Songs of Songs, it opens up by saying, let me put it up. 107, right? Okay. ቅዳሜማ በደንብ እንገናኛለን መግደላዊት። ቅዳሜ መቅረት የለም። ቅዳሜማ ዋናው ነው። All right. So this is the part where the speaker, I'm not going to go to the whole analysis, but in Songs of Songs, chapter 1, it begins by saying, I'm black and beautiful. Some translations have, I am black but beautiful. As it end or but, that is a whole thing on its own. Now, Origen seems to think, like the Bible, the tradition accepts this, of course, it's in the Bible, but black was supposed to be a metaphorical representation of sin. But Origen goes as far as saying It's just not some random blackness of a metaphorical speaker, but this black person is personified, and it is Ethiopian. My assessment of this is to say, we no longer talk about blackness being a metaphor, but we know what it looks like because it's been personified according to Origen, who thinks they're Ethiopian. So, who is the sinner? An Ethiopian, according to Origen. Not just any Ethiopian. He thinks this is Moses' wife, the Ethiopian. Then he says, and it is commonly said among the whole of the Ethiopian race, in which there's a certain natural blackness inherited by all. He spent a whole bunch of kind of like moments talking about what blackness means, what darkness is, and how that goes with sin. This is his writings, in which there's a certain natural blackness inherited by all. That in those parts the sun burns with fiercer rays, and that the bodies that have once been scorched and darkened transmitted congenital stain to their posterity. First of all, their darkness has a congenital stain to their posterity. What this means is their blackness is a stain on their generation. Being black is not a stain. It's not a stain. But I digress. But the reverse is the case with the blackness of the soul. Now he's talking about the soul. The blackness. For the soul is scorched, not being looked at by the sun, but by being looked down upon. Its blackness, therefore, is acquired not through birth, but through neglect. And since it comes through sloth, it's repelled and driven away by means of industry. And then he continues. He says, and lastly, as I said just now, the same person who is now called black, that is the speaker, is mentioned towards the end of this song as coming up, having been made white and leaning on her nephew. She became black then because she went down, but once she begins to come up to lean upon her nephew, to cleave onto him and suffer nothing whatever to separate her from him, and then she will be made white and fair. Here's the problem. According to the tradition, this concept of being black and white is a metaphorical representation of sin and righteousness. However, according to Origen, black is personified to be Ethiopian. We know what they look like. And when he says white, he's talking about physical whiteness. And again, according to Origen, the state of being black is something you avoid. He calls it a stain, even the physical part. This is a problem about race. This is racism. Of course there was racism. I think we don't spend enough time talking about how things are understood, or how things were written down, and we tend to believe, okay, everybody's talking about Christ, let me just focus on the good things. That's good, but there's serious ramifications about what happens later on. And that's what we're going to talk about next week. Now, the $1 million question here is, why do I make a big deal out of this? Why is this a big deal? Who cares, right? Like, why can't we hold hands and sing Kumbaya? Like, why does this make a difference if this happened a long time ago? That's the $1 million question. And here is my answer to this. My answer is, number one, because of concepts like this, starting from Frumentius, the Egyptian church has ordained itself to the mother church. What does this mean? We talk about the sisterly churches. As I said, we have sisterly churches. Like the Coptic church, we call it the sister church. The Armenian church, we call it the sister. Eritrean church, we call it the sister church. Why the mother? They call us the daughter church. here's the power dynamic that comes in to play between these two things. The other reason why I'm here and I'm talking, so hopefully someone listens, is to say that in the name of Christianity, horrible things have happened before in history. If we don't learn our history, history has a tendency to repeat itself. If you don't wake up and understand, look, there was a racial component here. A, it needs to be corrected. And B, moving forward, we need to have equality among all the churches. Just because we're Black, and by the way, I see this all the time in the Ethiopian circle. If there is a tradition in the Ethiopian circle, but there's certain things being said in the Coptic circles, the default often is to go by what the Copts said. Why? Because they're the mother church. Even when it comes to theology, like up front, these are theological arguments people make. After all, Egypt is the mother church. Who crowned her the mother church? She's the sister church. And we'll have a dialogue like she's the sister church. But who said she was the mother church? Because of Frumentius? See, that's an added clause that wasn't there before. Not only that, but again, when we look at history, think of the Crusades. The entire war was about politics. The entire Crusades was about politics because a land was taken, of course, Jerusalem, but a land was taken. And in order to get people to fight this war, what did they say? It's about Christianity. Christ wants you to fight this war. When you want people to get them to do something and they're not doing it for you, tell them God cares. That's how you start a war. Look at slavery. Again, by the way, the only people who think this is not a big deal are Ethiopian and Eritrean Orthodox people. The only people, like I've talked to, the only people that say, hey, this is not a big deal are the Ethiopian and Eritrean people. Of course, I know, obviously, Coptic Orthodox folks, but I mean, among the Black race, we talk about the Black race, the only people that are like, why is this a big deal? Are Ethiopians and Eritreans. I'm like, come on, guys, like, let's learn about history. Because African Americans, they know what was done in the name of Christianity, particularly during slavery. Slaves were given the Bible to read and made to believe that the Bible says to honor their masters. And all they had to do was just pray and not look at the injustice. This is the same method that is being used today when we are told, don't focus on this stuff, just focus on Jesus. It's the same method. We see injustice daily happening. And when we say, wait a minute, that looks a little bit racist, people are like, let's just hold hands and sing kumbaya. Let's forget all about it while the injustice continues. That doesn't sound right to me. This is what happened to colonialism. Again, another topic that we're going to cover another time. But when the Protestant movement started in Europe, part of the shift, the attitude shift that happened was embracing individualism. Remember, I always talk about the church, at least for the Orthodoxy, there's a community aspect. There's Medhani Aleb, the savior of the world. We're this community aspect. But during the shift of even feudalism, for example, this is how it ought to be. God willed it this way. There's the peasants, there's the bourgeoisie, there's the rich, there's the poor. That's just how it is. Then activists came up and said, wait a minute, things should change. Why is that the way that it is? We should challenge the old. Modernity needs to come in. Let's challenge what old people said. Why is this way? I have my own journey and how I come to what my life should be. My life is not already set out for me. I have my own personal journey to do, there's a lot of good things that could come out of it. In the breath of this transition, who came? Martin Luther came. Who came? John Calvin came and said, let's get rid of the old sola, the five solas, and yourself, individualism. After this, the shift that occurred is whatever you accumulate, including wealth, God willed it because now you did it. You see, individually, you have a right, even if you're poor. But if you strive real hard and you become rich, God must have willed it. This philosophy got into colonialism and said, if we start to colonize people and we get all the money, God willed it. This is the philosophy that entered using biblical verses to explain why they were colonizing people. So no, I will not sit back and simply say, look, when all these things are happening in the name of Christianity, keep quiet and just do other things. These are the things that people say. But specifically when it comes to Ethiopia and the relationship with Egypt, if you think I'm crazy, I invite you to watch this video. If you think I'm crazy, if you think this is just history and it has no bearing on current society, this is something that was covered 8 years ago of a trip that the Copts, Bishop Yousef, very well-known person, made to Ethiopia. And this is the interview that Bishop Yousef gave once they were in Ethiopia. I want everyone to listen to this. I don't know if there are people recording, but you guys could go ahead and record it and post this as well. Or if you guys want to find it on YouTube, it's found here. I'm going to play it. I want everybody to listen to this. So listen, she's asking, what is the purpose? Why did we come to Ethiopia? Why did we make this mission? And he's going to explain what this mission is about. For some reason on YouTube, on Facebook, I don't know why you can't hear it, but he's describing the mission. He said the world could be classified into three groups: people in the church, people who are lost, and people who are disbelievers. Okay. Before I continue, those of you who are in the Orthodox tradition and the Orthodox tradition only, which group are we in? Are we part of the believers? Are we the lost ones? Or are we the non-believers? Quickly. Believers, in church, believers. All right, let's hear what Bishop Yousef has to say. First of all, notice how he just said the Ethiopian church is the daughter. This is the term that I was telling you before. The Ethiopian church is the daughter to the Egyptian church. The daughter. Let's keep going. So, as you guys saw, we are the lost. By the way, the last part, politics aside, he's saying that, like, Abunas Hawiros, politics aside, if you know what I mean by that, was asking us so that we could educate him. So we're here to provide theological, like, teaching, to do Bible study with the Ethiopians. This is the reason why I say these ideologies, these philosophies that we talked about today, it's not something that's just in the past. It's still very much remnant now, and it needs to be corrected. Don't tell me just to, like, not pay attention and just pray when when they're coming to my country and indoctrinating my people. It's one thing to say, let's talk among each other. Keep in mind, they're Egyptians. We know the number of Muslims in Egypt. Why focus on the Ethiopians, especially from this perspective? This is the problem. This is the issue. Again, I want to give room to have a discussion today, but it baffles me. It baffles me when I hear that this doesn't matter from Ethiopians. I could take the heat if Copts are coming at me, but from my fellow Orthodox brethren who are saying this is not a big deal, it's heartbreaking. Anyone who's non-Ethiopian, who's black and non-Ethiopian, either Caribbean or African American, they know the significance of this. There are many non-Ethiopians coming into Ethiopia because they're saying this is the true Christianity. There are many people, Black Americans, leaving Baptist churches here in America because they're saying, no, this is not it. We need to find the real church, which is the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. Unfortunately, we don't understand our worth. Anyway, someone was saying, don't be emotional. If I don't get emotional for this, I don't know what to be emotional about. It genuinely bothers me. Like when I talk about these things, I'm not, like, I have a lot of things to do, honestly. Like, honestly, I have a lot of things to do. But it genuinely, like, I can't sleep at night sometimes. It really bothers me that these things exist and our approach is, whatever. Like, that's our approach. We wonder why things keep on circulating over and over and over again. Anyway, I'm done. I'll take some questions, hopefully related questions and not on other things. I promise you, we're gonna get back to this on Saturday, but now let me entertain some questions, hopefully related ones. Thank you for saying I'm not crazy. Sometimes I really do feel like I'm crazy, like I'm losing my mind. But I genuinely care, and it genuinely upsets me how these things are just like completely missed. Once again, an obsession over race. Only one God, one race is the human race. Everything else is vapor. Gabriel Jose Lebrun says, sure. I'm not gonna respond to that. That's just, how do we get in contact with you after you told us to contact you? I apologize. Okay, you know what? You can email me here. I just didn't want to put my email publicly, but old Leon, I apologize. I'll take the heat. Do you think the Coptic Pope acts as if he were the head of the church, as the Pope of Rome is the head of the Catholics? I wouldn't go that far, but at least when it comes to the Ethiopians, yes, there's a lot of, like, hey, don't do this approach, which I don't take kindly to at all. At all. I don't take kindly to. But yes, some of that does occur. If those of you who are live want to say a few words, we can do that as well.
Hey, Brother Dawit, how are you?
Hello, hello.
Hey, first off, I'd like to start by saying I really like your work. I like the fact that you're passionate about the faith, and I have also followed you for quite some time. And I think I started reading your book at some point, the one that you wrote about going to Ethiopia and stuff like that. I'm from Eritrea, by the way.
Okay.
And yeah, about the how. Okay, so my first question would be, how does this relate to the story of Saint Frumentius? Are you implying that Saint Frumentius could not be, or probably is not our first patriarch because because of the fact that you mentioned earlier?
Thank you for asking that question. Very important question. So I think Saint Frumentius came. I think he got his bishophood from Saint Athanasius. I don't think they added that extra piece that I showed you there. I think the story is true. Personally, I think it's true. I just don't think that extra bit was added to insinuate from now on all the bishops have to come from Egypt, right? Is the general gist of the extra bit. This part of like he's the first yeast that came to Agazi. I don't think that was ever said initially. And it was a bit that was added later on to give this kind of like, oh, remember Frumentius? This is how it happened. Now it has to happen like this from now on.
Yeah, but so yeah, we do agree that Frumentius is our first bishop.
Right? Yes, I agree with that. I don't have a problem agreeing that he's the first. I have a problem agreeing. I don't have a problem agreeing that he's the first bishop. I have a problem agreeing he's the first yeast.
So you believe that there might have been some other evangelizers of Christianity that came to our area prior to
the Ethiopian eunuch. The eunuch.
Well, the Ethiopian eunuch is, I mean, we do have a tradition of him coming to our area, and that the fact that he was Ethiopian, but technically, what are we implying when we say that he's Ethiopian, right? Is he Ethiopian from technically the places that are called Ethiopia right now, like the country Ethiopia, or probably Eritrea, or are they talking about the country Sudan? Because Ethiopia used to refer to, especially back in the day, it used to refer to the country that is called Sudan right now. And he might have evangelized, because we don't really have a concrete story of his ministry or his evangelization. We don't really know where he went. So he could have evangelized some people in Sudan. There could have been some Christians in Sudan at that time, which we don't really have any sources on. We can take our tradition if we can say that they're accurate.
Very good. So I actually covered this last week, and one of the things that we were saying was, it says he was from the queen of Candace, and Candace is Nubian. So actually, the scholarship is like Nubia, Sudan, right? So the issue with that is we also read that the Ethiopian man was reading from the book of Isaiah, chapter 53. Which indicates that he was a Jew and he was in Jerusalem to worship. And we know that Nubians were never Jews, but the tradition states that the Ethiopians were. So when we read like everything else that's connected with the story, it makes sense that he was likely to be Ethiopian from the scholarship perspective. So that's the first thing. The second thing, and I can't go through all the analysis because we did it last week. I think the video is posted up. But there were many people that existed before. We can even say a mini leak, of course, again, from the scholarship perspective, it's not accepted. But clearly there should have been someone within the tradition that was there. Why give us this idea that no one within the tradition accepted, had this agency of being a yeast? I mean, that's a major claim, right? It's one thing to say he was the first bishop. It's another thing to say a yeast, right? Like he's the one who kind of brought like good things. And I think the ultimate point is, it was not written in the Greek.
Yeah, well, you could say that he became a yeast because through his evangelization of Ezana and Saizana, Christianity became the empire religion of Aksoum, right? And that's when people started holistically accepting Christianity as their faith after a king accepted it, right? After both of them accepted it. Before that, we don't really have the Menelik story. You could take it as being factual. I don't take it as being factual, to be honest with you, because there's a lot of discrepancies in it. So I don't really have an issue of him being called a yeast,
except for the fact that he was never called a yeast by our initial documents. That's the point, right? Like that's the point. The point is, it was never written in initial documents.
So it was added into the Giz, right?
Yeah, it's added in the Giz. It's not there in the Greek, and that's the point.
Who added it into the Giz? Do we know that's for sure the Copts that added it into the Giz?
Well, I will say so again. It may have been the Ethiopians. Yeah, it may have been the Egyptians.
That out of reverence for Saint Frumentius.
Right, based on the tradition that they received from the Egyptians, though. The Ethiopians didn't come up with this on their own.
Well, we call him Kasete Brahan, right? That's
Kasete Brahan, yeah.
We give him somebody that brought the light onto us.
Kasate,
right?
The name Kasete Brahan occurs in the Sinkasar. So I have no problem with Frumentius. None. I want to be very, very clear here, right? Zero problem with him. My problem is the way that the story is recorded, and perhaps, and most likely, this edition was said to be, from now on, the Ethiopians have to receive their bishop from Ethiopia. And it appears that it started here. Even if this whole thing is wrong, again, we get a window into their philosophy based on all the other documents that I just showed you, talking about Ethiopians in a negative light. So to me, it shows that there is a racist motive to say we want to keep the Ethiopians to be inferior. So
that could be the case.
I mean that. So the idea that they had racist views is not subjective, right? Like it's subjective. We've seen that in the texts.
Are you talking about specifically about that Moses the Black story that
Moses the Black, Origen, the I think I cited about
Origen? We can't really take him as Origen is completely fallible, right? We don't take him as a saint. No church takes him as a saint. Whatever he says is not something that we regard as theologically
right. So I'm not invoking Origen here as a theological father, by the way. That's a moot point for me. It is a window into the philosophy of the people that existed. I go as far as saying the people who did this don't represent the Coptic church. Of course, for me, the Copts have we're one in faith, right? So I can't criticize the church as a tradition. I can't criticize specific people, specific regions, specific group of people that existed at a particular time.
Yeah, that could be the case. But another fact could be that I know that I think it's a little too long to not have your own bishop for 1,500 years, right? That could come from, the fact that Christianity was not holding, because not only the Egyptians did this, by the way, the Greeks actually did it to the Russians when they evangelized the Russians in the 10th century. They weren't appointing their own bishops for like a good 500 years.
And that's fine. The point and the claim that I'm making today is that there was a race factor in the writings of the early Egyptian fathers. Tell me I'm wrong, because I just showed you all these texts. Again, Origen, whether or not he's holy is not the point. Is the fact that it is written. Moses the Black, the writing of the anonymous saying of the Desert Fathers. At least these three texts are indicative. Number four, there is a text that is added in the Ge'ez that is not in the Greek. Now, you can make the argument it was either the Egyptians who did it or the Ethiopians that did it. To me, that's a moot point. The point is this philosophy is later born. And I don't think the Ethiopians are the one who created this later idea that, he's a yeast, but it is the Egyptians who brought this idea. Of course, the Ethiopian may be the hand, but the ones who created this concept that the Egyptians, the Ethiopians now have to be the daughter church is not a concept. It doesn't seem to me that the Ethiopians would create. And then when you couple this with all the writings, I think we have something serious going on.
I'll say this, right? I personally do not have the issue of calling Saint Frumentius the East, because we do call him Kasset Abraham, and as you said, you don't have a problem with them. And even if it was, regardless of it being added by the Copts or by our fathers, I don't have a problem with them being called the first yeast, because technically...
But do you have a problem with things being added into a translation?
Well, that always happens, especially within our area.
But that's not my question, though, right?
But specifically that being added, you could say, okay, so did they say that they were directly translating it from the story of Frumentius? Did they copy it?
You can look at the Seneca. It says this is the story that the ending is exactly the same, by the way. The ending is exactly the same. And I think we're spending too much time on it. But one thing that I want to make clear here is there needs to be a distinction between Frumentius, who, hey, we could call him yeast, we could call him saint. We don't just call him yeast, we call him saint. So that's not the problem here. The problem is how this story is getting recorded. That's the issue. And the addition of the text. Now, if you have one thing, if all I'm bringing here is a story about how in the translation process we have some extra words, it's one thing. When you couple that with all the other things, so you look at it in totality, which is how we do research, then you begin to see there is a trend and a pattern that the Egyptians have about philosophy. I saw a question by Mike earlier. Is this political motive or race motive? I think there's absolutely a political motive, but there's also a race component, as we saw in the texts. There is a negative outlook towards Black people. The issue was the black face. The first reading that we saw, the issue was the black face, not the soul, but the face was black. So, we can keep going back and forth. Again, look, the claim that I keep saying is no issue with Frumentius as a saint, as a person, but I think I can push back and say the way that it was recorded appears to have an addition that is not in the initial one, that is consistent with the racist views that they have. That, I think, is a problem.
Well, I don't take it that way.
I mean, you're free to take it, any way you want.
And I respect your opinion.
Yeah.
You're a brother in faith. I respect a lot of the things that you do. I just wanted to have a discussion with you.
Sure. Yeah. And that's the thing, right? So the point of this room is not, and I started off by saying, look, I don't have the final say. This is how I see things. We talk, and it's possible we just don't agree, and that's okay, right?
Yeah. That's all we're doing. I hope you're not taking offense to me being, disagreeing with you at the end of the day.
So that's one of the reasons why I started this room is more than the agreements. I think the disagreements are great lessons, because we have a negative culture of if I disagree with you, you just became my enemy.
Right.
And this kind of like the bigger picture that I'm trying to do is an experiment. Are we able to talk about history in a peaceful way? That means including the times that we disagree, because I'm going to bring up a lot of points later on, where some are going to be unpopular, but can we still talk and discuss in a way that you and I just did, which I think is important.
Right. So yeah, to get back to that point that you said, I would. It kind of seems like it's ambiguous to bring up the point of Saint Frumentius and then relate it to what you said earlier. For that matter, I think we could take it as, regardless. Let's say even our fathers wrote it. It could be if it had said that, okay, he's the yeast, he's the first yeast, and that's why we're getting our bishops from Egypt, because he's the first yeast, and we're not worthy to be bishops yet. Had it been like that on the text, had it been that addition, I'd have given it to you. But right now, I think what I would say is, out of reverence, the reverence that we have for Abuna Salama Kasat Abraham, they probably, and I would say that it's most likely it could be our fathers that added it into
yeah
it.
My brother here
I don't want to make any speculations using that added text that's on there.
So do you know why Ethiopians were receiving bishops from Ethiopia? Do you know why?
Yeah, I think they said that we're not worthy enough, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, that's definitely true in the Fatanagas, and that is definitely by the Copts, by the way. So that is there. Keep that in mind. They did definitely say it in Fatanagas. But when it comes to Fremnatos, the tradition is, because we got the bishop from Fremnatos. This is the tradition that is believed. Now, exactly what writing it was first written, I'm not sure. But the tradition is the fact that we received bishops from Egypt because of Fremnatos, starting from that period, and it just continued. So the reason why I'm pointing to the text of Fremnatos is because this is kind of the genesis of when everything occurred. And my question is, why did it occur that way? I think that's just what happened. It was by chance, but there's nothing in the story of Frumentius, at least in the initial documents, that tell us this tradition should continue. And in fact, spoiler alert, we're going to see that Zagwe simply said, no more. And they go to the Syrian Orthodox Church. So we'll see this. And it's going to be important. But again, I can't stress enough, this is not a dig or unwillingness or a problem against Fremnatos. No problem there. The issue is how it's recorded, and as you said, they explicitly, Fatanaga said, we should not have bishops. So it's not something like random, right? And they did write that. It is a problem. Anyway, thank you.
One last question. Do you have an issue of us? I don't have an issue of us personally. I don't have an issue of us receiving bishops from Egypt up until a certain point, because historically it has been the case. That has been the case in a lot of places.
Why would we receive? Why would I? Yeah, I have a huge problem with it. Why would I receive a bishop, and why not get bishops for our own? Why not?
Oh yeah, not right now. Specifically, right now, if you say, I think everybody, Egypt should have its own bishop.
No, even back from the beginning. Why couldn't we give bishops to Egypt? Why couldn't they get bishops from us?
Well, first they are the one that evangelized us, right?
No, I disagree with that. That is the point. Is I disagree with that. Why are we less than the Egyptians when it comes to spirit? Who said that? Like, who wrote this?
Being less than them. There's people that received the faith before than any other people. Like I mentioned earlier.
Who said we received it? Who said we received it from the Egyptians?
We received it from Saint Frumentius. I don't know if you take the story of
my brother. Now we're entering.
That's another point, right?
We're talking about another thing. One thing I would say, with respect, is
let me finish this one right quick, if you don't mind, bro.
Okay, sure.
So yeah, if you take the story of Menelik, or if you take the story of the Ethiopian bishop, that's another case. The most concrete fact that we have so far, scholastically, is that we, as an empire, let's say the Aksumite empire that existed during that time, was evangelized by Saint Frumentius and his brother.
So my brother, I just urge you to go back and watch my previous video, because now we're talking about when did Christianity enter Ethiopia. I am.
It's not about entering to Ethiopia.
Hold on,
wait,
my brother, wait, my brother.
There could have been people.
My brother, let
me finish this point.
I first hear me out. I'm into scholarship, and what I was showing last week is, if we go by the scholarship, Ethiopians received Christianity not in the 4th century but the 6th century. We're going to go by scholarship. The second thing is, when I talk about scholarship, I've explicitly said, if we're talking purely from scholarship and evidence, we simply do not have the evidence to back up the claim about Minilik, specifically Minilik, right? But I will talk about the other things later on from a scholarship perspective. But that's because they get rid of oral tradition, and I believe that oral tradition should be put into scholarship, but it's not accepted. From a scholarship perspective, though, there is an argument to make to say that Ethiopians received the Christianity not from Egyptians, but from the Levant in the 1st century. There's enough evidence to do that. I've went through this whole analysis behind it, and all I'm asking you to do is to go back and watch that video, because I think it's going to be repetitive to go back and forth.
Yeah, but and I'm going to finish with my last point, and then you can give it to the other people.
Sure.
Yeah, I've read those sources as well too. That said, especially I've read another source that said that there were Christians in Adulis. I don't know if you know that story, but that came through to trade. Adulis is a part of Ertra, and they might have evangelized some people out there. But what we know so far, and for the most part, Christianity was not popular. It wasn't out there like that prior to Ezana and Saizana, and then even to the 9 saints like Abu Naragawi, all of those people even evangelized a lot of people after they came. That's a concrete fact, because we know that there were pagans. Forget Ethiopia, there were pagans in Eritrea during that time as well too. So what we can say is that it wasn't popularized. It wasn't the majority of the people. It wasn't practiced as much. Definitely in the 1st century. Definitely in the 2nd century, because we do have kings that had those empires during that time that were pagans, that dedicated their monuments to their specific gods and goddesses and stuff like that. So what we can say is that Christianity definitely became an empire religion in the 4th century. That's my perspective. You can disagree with it. What I'm gonna come to, my last point, is that I don't have an issue with a specific group of people getting their bishops from the people that evangelize them, or from the people that has a historical apostolic succession. In our case, it's Egypt. In the Russians' case, it's the Greeks. For example, the Greeks, like I said, had their bishops come from Greek. I mean, the Russians had their bishops come from Greek for a good 500 years. And that's because you can have a king, you can have a certain group of people that convert to Christianity at a certain time and point, but that doesn't mean that Christianity is there as in practice. You know, King Ezana could have converted to Christianity. He could have been well learned about Christianity. Other people around him could have been well learned about Christianity, but that doesn't mean that the whole people out there are learned in Christianity as much as him. So, as you know, just as the Greeks had come and popularized and made it a faith of much of the people in Russia, I don't have an issue of us receiving that faith and receiving our bishops, or receiving multiple priests to evangelize, to write books, to help others in our case as well too. Could we make an issue of it being for 1,500 years, yes, that's a little bit too long. And I don't like the fact that they said that we were not maybe worthy enough at some point. But to say that receiving a bishop from a certain place that evangelized you, and then right away you'll appoint your bishop from your side, and then it's just practically not possible, especially during that time when
my brother, you've made your point. Go back and watch my videos. There's a lot of points that you made that I've already addressed, but thank you for coming. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, bro.
Yes, for sure. Halita.
Peace up on us, all of you guys. Glad to see, bringing this kind of topics or, historical topics, and I'll discuss them, because this is one of my very confusing question for myself. I was asking, and then it just slipped on my heart for a long time. Then now you picked it up, and then I was like, okay, now I can, talk about it. So I was like to ask a lot of questions. Already you guys address it, and but as I see it, is I think it needs more deeply studied about that specifically. That's historical, because I don't agree that for Ethiopians we've been mentioned since Moses, you can name it, before them actually having a spiritual connection with God, left out for like all those years without like fathers, and I cannot even accept it, like the eunuch. Usually the apostolic fathers do is like when they teach you our Jesus Lord, he came, he'll teach all this stuff. After they didn't baptize you, they ordained somebody else to lead that people, and that's how they create the church everywhere. And for that matter, we supposed to be the first, because we've been mentioned in the book of the holy books that we accept Christianity from one of the apostles. So I wish I can sit and then bring it on my questions, but I don't want to take so much time about it, and that I want to just add some things on it. For example, this thing it looks like some kind of political issue. It's not. It's about like losing lives, because currently people are talking about this kind of things, and then go away from the church and change their allegiance. So it's simple things. There is a lot of matters to it. If you just study it, what bring us this kind of problems. So yeah, I think we need. I missed your previous discussion, so I have to go back there and then first watch the video and then come back, ask you a question. But I mostly agree with you. It's a big thing to talk about it. I wish you bring in a lot of scholars so we can learn about it. But I'm 100% on with you. Thank you for the chance.
Thank you.
And how about your daddy though? Say hi to Kashmulune.
Oh really? Okay.
And your mom too.
Oh really? Okay.
Yeah. And seeing you growing up spiritually every day is one of the proudest things to see, to be honest.
Thank you so much.
I'm hoping I'm gonna meet you one day.
For
I know
sure.
we live together around DC, but how we live here.
Yeah,
it's so
yeah,
hard to make time. But one day I'm gonna talk to you even about my kids, so we can share.
For sure. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate it. Thank you. There's a few things that Haleta said, and also on YouTube I saw a comment when I said, why couldn't we have our own bishops? Someone said that is like non-orthodox. We can't just go against the Egyptians or something like that. And this is kind of like the decolonization that we need to do of our minds, right? Like the concept that for example, there's Syria is a lot or even Jerusalem, that we couldn't establish a way for bishops to like Ethiopians to be consecrated as bishops, and then they couldn't become bishops right away. What stopped that? Why couldn't that happen? Or in another way, why couldn't the Syrians give bishops to Ethiopians, which it happened in Zagwe period, which we're going to talk about in a second or next week? And why couldn't Ethiopians send bishops over to the Egyptians, which is mainly Muslims? Why couldn't that happen? And this concept of like, of course it has to come down, is this ideology that I want us to break away from. And my brother Haleta said it perfectly. If we read the Bible, when someone is baptized, they wouldn't have just sent him alone, right? Of course, the Bible doesn't write everything. We don't know, so we're we're making a conjuncture at this point. But we have to imagine, like, there might have been something. We don't know. Admittedly, but to me, I think it's a problem that there's an extra bit written that is not in the Greek. That's a problem. And that in itself may not be telling of anything sinister, but to me, that added into everything else is very telling of this deep kind of racist view that existed against Ethiopia. And again, I say over and over again, when it comes to Ethiopia, the name of the game appears to be, don't look at the negative, just pay the attention to the positive, while all these negative things are happening behind you. I can't get on board with that. Pekka, hello.
Yeah. Good morning, Jack.
Hello.
Hello, can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, good morning. Thank you for the beautiful presentation we had earlier. Can I ask my questions in Amharic for that matter?
ይቻላል ምንም ችግር የለውም።
እሺ የኔ ጥያቄ የሬሲዝም ኢሹ ላይ ያነሱት ነው ታሪኩንና ከነሱ ከኮፕቶች ያለውን ሪፍሌክሽን ቼክ የማድረግ አጋጣሚ ከነበሩት ያኛውን ዳይሬክሽን ስላላሳዩም አይ ሶ ብራያን ኖያል የጻፉትን አርቲክል ቼክ አድርጌው ነበር እና ኮፕቶች ሪፍሌክት ያደረጉት ሪሰንትሊ ነበረ እና እሱን ቼክ ያደረጉት ከሆነ እሱን ምላሽ እንዴት ተመለከቱት?
አላየሁትም።
ለምሳሌ የተነሱት ኮንክሪት ስለሆኑ ብዬ ነው። ለምሳሌ ይሄ ታሪክ የተፈጸመው 4ኛው ሴንቸሪ ላይ ነው where ይሄ by itself racism by itself as a social construct issue ባልነበረበት ጊዜ ግን the Greek manuscript ይሄ አሁን እንትኑ ይሄ ሲንክሳሩ የተተረጎመው ኮፒው ደግሞ 12th century ነው። ይሄ the northern African parts ላይ እንደዚህ አይነት issue as an issue emerge ባረገበት ጊዜ ማለት ነው። ስለዚህ ታሪክን ደግሞ ዛሬ ላይ ሆነን የትላንትን ታሪክ ትሪትስ እናደርገው በዛ አይነት አገባብ ስለተጻፈ ነው አይነት የሚል እንትን አለው ኮንክሉዥን አለው እና even if it's true ራሱ ማለት ነው። ለምሳሌ ከስክሪፕቸር አንጻር ከሞናስትሪ ለምሳሌ ብዙ ጊዜ አርች ቢሾፖች አዳዲስ መነኮሳት ላይ ክሩል ይሆናሉ ማለት ስፒሪቹዋል ፖይንት ኦፍ ቪው አለ ሂዩሚሊቲያቸውን ለመፈተን እንደዚህ ለምሳሌ አባ ቢሾይ ልጅ ያለውን መነኮስ ሊመነኩስ ሲመጣ ልጅህን ወደ ወንዝ ጥለህና ብሎታል። ላይክ ኢቨን ጂሰስ ሂምሰልፍ he had that discussion with the Canaanite woman, right? like ለውሾች እምነቷን ለመፈተን ማለት ነው ጀንታይሎችን የሆነ ያገለለ በሚመስል ሁኔታ። ስለዚህ ይሄንን እንዴት ታየዋል ለማለት ነው።
አንደኛ ነገር race is a social construct. It absolutely is. Our concept of understanding race changes every time. So when something is written, we have to read it in the frame and the lens of how it was intended to be read. So my question to you would be, how should I read it? Okay, like fair enough. How should I read it?
Thank you. Yeah, that's my point. First of all, like the Northern African part ራሱ ማለት ነው። ለምሳሌ ስምዖን ቀነናዊ ክርስቶስን መስቀል ላይ ተሸከመው ሌቢያዊ እንደነበር ግን ጥቁር እንደነበር ይናገራል አይደል? ስለዚህ it was like common ራሱ Northern African part ላይ ስለዚህ history ዛሬ ላይ ሆነን በዛሬ ኢመርጅ ባረጉ ሶሻል ፕሮብሌሞች ትሪት እንዴት እናደርገዋለን?
አይ በዛሬ ላይ ሳይሆን ኖ እሱን እንኳን አግሪ ያደርጋለሁ። በአራተኛው ክፍለ ዘመን፣ በአምስተኛው ክፍለ ዘመን፣ በስድስተኛው ክፍለ ዘመን በተጻፉት መጽሐፍት ላይ I don't know exactly. I'll try to find when the sayings of the Desert Fathers was compiled. I imagine 2nd, 3rd, 4th century, because that's when it was active,
copy,
right?
Yeah, I was referring to the Greek copy. That's the brand oil.
Okay. እዛ ላይ እኮ ምንም ሬሲስት ነገር አላነበብንም። የፍሬምናጦስን ታሪክ ነው።
No. I Saint Moses the Black.
Okay, Saint Moses the Black ላይ Okay, ስለዚህ Moses the Black ላይ እንዴት ላንብበው? ታሪኩን እንዴት ላንብበው? You are black, get out of here ሲለው እንዴት አንደርስታንድ ላደርገው?
Yeah, first of all አሁን እኔ ግላንስ ያየሁት ከኮፕቶቹ ራሱ ምክንያቱም ስንክሳር ላይ አባታችን ብለው ተቀብለውት ለኛ ራሱ መልሶ ያስተዋወቁን ራሳቸው
Absolutely
ከራሳቸው ማዳመጥ አለብን አይደል? አሁን እኔ አንድ ከነሱ ቸርች ወጣን ሪፍሌክሽን አነበብኩ ለዛ ጽሁፍ ማለት ነው። ስለዚህ ምንድነው የሚለው እንዋጣውና ምክንያቱም አሁን እንዴትም የተረዳውን ሰው በዛ አርጊውመንት ልክ እንቀበለውና ብሎ ነው መልስ ይሰጠው። ለምሳሌ አርች ቢሾፑ እንዲህ ቢናገረው እንኳን ሰዎችን መነኮሳት አዳዲስ ወጣንያን ሲመጡ መንፈሳዊ ጥንካሬያቸውን ለመፈተን ወይም ሂዩሚሊቲያቸውን ወይም የምንጽናታቸውን ለመፈተን በዊክነሳቸው or ደግሞ
okay እዚህ ጋር ፖዝ እናደርግ That is my point, by the way. የኔ point, that is my point. Like ሰውን ገዳም ውስጥ በዊክነሳቸው ነው የምንፈትነው ሲባል I don't question the fact that like they're trying to test Moses from a spiritual angle እና የሆነ spiritual element አለው የሚለውን ነገር ስቸው አይደለም። My problem is ጥቁርነቱ it's viewed as a weakness. And I'm saying that's wrong. Right? Like አሁን ለምሳሌ Didymus the blind ቢገባ get away from here, you blind person ሊሉት ይችላሉ አይደለ? ምክንያቱም blind ስለሆነ disability ነው ብለው ስለሚያዩት ማለት ነው። ይህ ሰውዬ ግን ጥቁር መሆኑ እንደ disability እየተቆጠረ ነው። To test him or not, I don't care what the purpose is. My point is, this perspective of blackness as a disability is a problem. ቅድስናው ደግሞ ቅዱስ ያሰኘው ሴንት ያሰኘው ልክ ናቸው እኔ እኮ ጥቁር ነኝ ብሎ ራሱን ዝቅ ስላደረገ ነው እንግዲህ ጽሁፉ if there's another way to understand this text, please by all means I'll be open to discuss. However, it is clear his spirituality. I want to call out የግብጽ አባቶች, by the way, this is what they're defending, which I find shocking. It's shocking to me to say this is an element of spirituality to accept that you are a lowly state. እና አንዳንድ ጊዜ ቀደም እኮ ብየዋለሁ የትም ቦታ ግን ክርስቶስም አንዳንድ የተቀደሰውን ለውሾች አይሰጥም ብለዋል። የተለያየ ነገር እንደዚህ ስፒሪቹዋሊቲ በስፒሪቹዋል አንግል የምናየው ነገሮች ሊኖሩ ይችላሉ። የትም ቦታ ግን ኢንጀስቲስ በለው አንልም። ክርስቶስ ለምሳሌ ይሁዳ እኮ ክርስቶስን ሲሸጠው ክርስቶስ ያቅ ነበር፣ አላቆመውም። ለምን? መሰቀል እኮ አለበት። በነገራችን ላይ ክርስቶስ መሰቀሉ ድረስ like it's a good thing for us ግን ሲሰደብ በጥፊ ሲመታ when they were spitting on him all these things እንደ positive ነገር አይደለም እኮ የምናየው ኔጌቲቭ ነገር ተደርጎለት ክርስቶስ ግን ዝም አለ እኮ ነው ኔጌቲቭ ነገሮቹ ሲደረግ ዝም አለ አሁን እዚህ ጋር ግን የምናየው ምንድነው ስድቡ ፖዚቲቭ ሆነ እኮ ነው how is that spirituality
ያ as a disability ተቆጠረላሉ ለምሳሌ የክርስቶስን እንትን እንውሰደው same analogy ጀንታይሎችን የልጆችን እንጀራ ለቡችሎች መጣል አይገባም ሲላቸው ልጆች ህዝብና ህዛብን እኩል ትሪት ሊያደርግ በአዲስ ኪዳን አንድ ናቸው አይደል እንደ በክርስቶስ with that mentality ግን he still used this term ልጆችና ቡችሎች ብሎ ተናገራት
ከዛ ምን ሆነ
እና አሁን ደግሞ ሌላው ደግሞ ጥያቄ
ከዛ ምን ሆነ ግን ቆይ እህታችን ከዛ ምን ሆነ እዛ ወንጌሉ ላይ ምን ሆነ ክርስቶስ
what she replied change her like her ማለት የሷን faith በዛንትን አለና ያው ጽናቷን እምነቷን አድንቆላት መልሶ
አንደኛ እዚህ ጋር ምናየው ነገር ሴፐሬት ማድረግ ያስፈልጋል አይደለ አንደኛ ስለ እምነት ነው እያወራን ያለነው ስለ physical disability አይደለም ክርስቶስ እንደውም he was with the physical disabled people going and the lowly ones that's who Christ spent his time with እና ፈተና አለ ወይ of course አለ different levels of ፈተና ይሄ ሰው እንዴት ነው እንትን የሚለው again my point is though እኔ እኮ ለምን ፈተኑት አይደለም ጥያቄ ለምን ፈተኑት that's fine ፈተና አለ even ስድቡንም ኦኬ ፓስ ላደርገው የሚፈትኑበት መንገድ ማለት ነው ሙሴ ግን they are right ብለዋል እኮ ነው የሚለው they are right እኮ ነው ያለው ግዴለም ይስደቡኝ ልጸልይ አይደለም ያለው ግዴለም ይሄ ስድብ ይገባኛል እኔ እኮ ኃጢአተኛ ነኝ ይገባኛል አይደለም they are ጥቁር ነኝ I'm low you see inferior ነኝ ብሎ ማሰቡ በተአምር a positive virtue ብለን ልንጠራው አንችልም በየትኛውም ዓለም እኔ አልጠራውም እኔ በበኩሌ ይሄ በየትኛውም አንድም ታምጭልኝ ልቀበለው አልችልም በተአምር
እሱን የሰፖርት ያደርኩ አይደለም ባይዘው ይሄ statemenቱን አይደለም
but Muse supported it according to them any by the way ቀደም ለወንድማችን እንደነገርኩት I don't think Muse ever said this I don't think that he thought this cuz how would they know right how would they know what Muse actually said I think they wrote this and it is wrong I think there was a Muse ጸልይ የሚባል and ጻድቅ ነበረ a righteous person ነበረ he was in the community and I don't think he was thinking like this I don't think so this is just my guess ግን ይሄ መጽሐፉ ግን it is the definition of racism going back to your original question if it is a text that's written in the 4th century should we read it in the light of a 12th century the answer is absolutely not so the table goes back around if there's another way to read it show me how to read it I'll be by the way ይሄ passion ነውና ክርክር አይደለም I hope በጣም ይቅርታ እንተናላለሁ
አይ ኮፒ ሲያደርጉት the Greek version የተተረጎሙ ሲተረጎሙ እንትኖች 12ኛ ሴንቸሪ ላይ የተተረጎሙ ታሪኩ 4th century ነው ስለዚህ there must be የሆነ እንትን አለ ብለን የምንቀበላቸው uncertainties ይኖራሉና one of እንትኑ ደግሞ interpretation by itself የተወሰደበት ሊሆን ይችላል የሚል ነው የኔ አቀባበል ማለት
ነው ትርጉሙ ላይ ግሪኩ እኮ አለ
ኮፒው ላይ the Greek copy 12th century ላይ ነው ያለው ታሪኩ 4th century ነው
so አልገባኝ so ኦሪጂናሉ የለም ነው የምትይኝ
ኦሪጂናሉ ላይ ቼክ ማድረግ ይገባል ነው አሁን የነሱ የኮፕቲኮቹም መጨረሻ ላይ የሰጡት
so by the way I could look into it further again there are other people that have taken this more seriously particularly Muse የጻፈው ነገር ሪሰርች አድርገው አለ ብለዋል ይሄ ሐሳብ አለ ብለዋል ሁለተኛ ነገር ይሄ መጽሐፍ on the market የሚገኝ መጽሐፍ ነው if it is wrong that's fine I'm okay like I don't have a problem then fix the text
no the text አለ ያ አለ ቴክስቱ ይሄኛው ኮፒው ላይ አለ ኦሪጂናሉ ላይ ግን እነሱም
አሁን እኮ ምልሽ እዚህ ቴክስት ላይ ፊክስ ይደረግ ነው እዚህ ላይ አዲሱ ኤዲሽን ላይ
even እኛ ቤተክርስቲያንም እንደወረደ ነው የተቀበልነው the Coptic and the Ethiopian version of Synaxarium አንድ አይነት ነው
እህቴ እኔ እኮ እዚህ ጋር ቁጭ አልኩት ለምን ይመስልሻል ይሄ ሁሉ በሙሉ መስተካከል ታሪክን እንደ ታሪክ እኮ እናየዋለን የሚስተካከሉ ነገሮች አሉ ዶግማ አይደለም ይሄ ዶግማ አይደለም ስለዚህ መስተካከል ያለበት አሁን እኔ አንድ ዲያቆን ነኝ ግን ልጅ ነኝ በራሴ ምንም የማመጣው ነገር የለኝም ግን እንደዚህ ተመካክሮ ከአባቶች ጋር ተነጋግሮ አንዳንድ ነገሮች መስተካከል ወይ መታየት ያለባቸው ነገሮች ሊኖሩ ይችላሉ እና አሁን እዚህ ጋር ግን ምንድነው ማድረገው ጥያቄ ነው የምጠይቀው I don't care በግዕዝ ይጻፍ በግሪክ ይጻፍ በሲሪያ ይጻፍ እኔ እዚህ ጋር ቁጭ አልኩት ይሄም ነገር መታይ እንዴት ነው የምናየው ሪሊ ይሄንን አዎ አሜን ብለን ልንቀበል ነው ወይ የሚል ጥያቄ አለኝ ነው I don't care እኮ
concrete ግዕዝ background እንዳለው ታውቃለውና እዚሁ related መንጻትን
sorry ስልኩ እንትን አለ
ኦኬ አሁን ይሰማል
አሁን ያው
እሺ መንጻት ለምሳሌ መንጻት ሚለው መንጣት ወይ ከሚለው ጋር ማለት ነው ከሆነ ነገር ሲታጠብ from dirt ይሄ ተርሙ ባይተልፍ አማርኛው መንጻት ወይ መንጣት ነው አይደል የምንለው
እሺ
እሱን ከዚህ ጋር እንዴት አያይዘው ይገልጹታል ማለት ከተስተካከለ ራሱ ቮካብላሪያችን ራሱ እንትን አለበት ማለት ነው እንደኔ
አልገባኝም ጥያቄው sorry
ለምሳሌ ቀደም የኦሪገንን የመሐሌን አንስተው ሲጠቅሱ ስለሰማሁኝ ነው ጥቁር ነኝ ግን ውብ ነኝ የሚለው በመጀመሪያ እሱ ላይ ያሉትን ሪፍሌክሽን ከእርሱ ባውቅ የእሱን ሳይሆን የእርሱን ጥቁር ነኝ ግን ነው የሚለውና ግን አፍራሽ ነው ስለዚህ ሁለቱ አብረው ሊሄዱ እንደማይችሉ
አንዳንድ ጊዜ ትራንስሌሽኑ ቀደም ብዬ ነበረ ጥቁር ነኝ ኤንድ የሚልም ትራንስሌሽን አለ እና በት አይደለም ነው እንግዲህ so I would need to go back እና Septuagint እና ሂብሩን መመልከት ያስፈልጋል Septuagint ምን ይላል ሂብሩ ምን ይላል ብሎ ማየት ያስፈልጋል ስለዚህ end ከሆነ the translation is I am black and beautiful ነው የሚሆነው
so መንጻትን የሚያልኩት ለዛ ነው አሁን ከኃጢአት መንጻት የሚለው ልካላ አይደለ ከብላክ ኤንድ ዋይት ከሚለው
yeah absolutely አሁን እኮ ቀደም I don't know how long you were listening ግን አሁን ለምሳሌ መሐሌ ላይ በእኛ ትራዲሽን አለ እንግዲህ መቼስ መጽሐፍ ቅዱስ እስከሆነ ድረስ ግን ጥቁር ሜታፎሪካል ነው ሲምቦሊዝም ነው ብለን ነው የምንወስደው እዚህ ጋር ማለት ነው አንደኛ ነገር ተናጋሪዋ ቤተክርስቲያን የምትጠብቀው ሰው like her husband is Christ ብለን ነው አንድምታውን የምንሰጠው በኢትዮጵያ ኦርቶዶክስ ተዋሕዶ ቤተክርስቲያን ተረዳሽኝ አይደለ እዚህ ጋር ግን ጥቁር ብሎ specifically personified ሆነች ተናጋሪዋ so it's not no longer a symbolism we don't no longer imagine sin in a metaphorical state but we have personified it into an imaginary person and what does that person look like they look Ethiopian that is racist you see that is a problem they've personified this metaphor into a tangible touchable person the wife of Moses
yeah ብቻ ወደዚህ እንትን የመጣሁት ፋይናሊ ይሄንን ራፕ ለማድረግ ይሄንን የጠየቅኩት እንዴት እንረዳው ብለው ስላሉኝ መጽሐፍ ቅዱስ ላይ እንደምን ብትጠቁሩ እንደ አጣነጣችሁ ትነጣላችሁ ይላልና
Metaphorically, yes.
Allegorical.
Metaphorically, absolutely. Like again, the soul, though, right? Metaphorically, I said this before, but metaphorically, yes, Bible layim alle. However, we cannot personify it.
Yeah, the desert fathers, like allegorically, እንደዚህ አይነት ተርሚኖሎጂዎች ለምሳሌ በኃጢአት መቆሸሽን የሶል መጥቆርን አለ አይደለ? ለዛ ነው ከኮፕቶች ፖይንት ኦፍ ቪው እንዴት ይተረጉምታል የሰጠችም እሷ ቤተክርስቲያን ስለሆነች እንዴት ይተረጉማለች ቢሆን ከእሷ መጠየቅ አይገባንም ወይ? ምክንያቱም ፎርት ሴንቸሪ ማለት ስምዖን ቀሬናዊው ሊቢያዊ ነው ከተባለ እነሱ ጋም ጥቁርነት ዳት ማች እንግዳ የሆነ ከለር አይደለም ማለት ነው ወደሚለው ይወስደናል ብዬ አስባለሁ። እና ለዛ ነው
አንቺ ጥቁር ነሽ?
Of course.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
The answer is compared to who ነው አይደለ? ምክንያቱም ጥቁር የሚባል ሰው የለም፣ ነጭ የሚባል ሰው የለም። ሬሌቲቭ እኮ ነው። ቀደም ያልሽው ነገር እዚህ ጋር ነው የሚመጣው። It's a relative thing. Nobody's black, nobody's white. It's relative to who is the question. ቀይ ሰው እንላለን ኢትዮጵያ። ይሄ ቀይ ነው እንላለን። እዚህ ሀገር መጥቶ ግን ብላክ ይባላል ሳይወደው በግዱ። እንደው የቀላ ሰው እያለን እዚህ ግን ብላክ ነው። አየሽ? ስለዚህ the concept of being black is a social construct. We agree with this. So first of all, it's not biblical. Black and white Bible የሚለው the metaphorical representation of darkness and light, Brahan, Christos Brahan, no. So no, that's not a racist comment. My issue again and again, this metaphor for sin and righteousness become personified to a black face, which is what it says in the saying of the anonymous bishops. Black face, qualo. ወደ ሙሴ ጸሊም ስንሄድ the same concept, get away from me, you black person. He's not talking about a soul. You sinner እያለው አይደለም. You black person. አንተ ጥቁር ከኔ ጋር ኮምፔር ስትደረግ ዳርከር ነህ እያለው ነው። በነገራችን ላይ ይሄ የመጀመሪያው ሳምንት ነው። ኔክስት ዊክ በደንብ እናያለን። ምንም ደግሞ ማንወጣበት የኔክስት ዊኩ የሬስ ኮምፖነንት የለውም እንጂ ጥላቻቸውን በደንብ እናያለን። ለምሳሌ በግልጹ ኢትዮጵያውያን የራሳቸውን ጳጳስ አይሹሙ ይላል በ12ኛው በ13ኛው ክፍለ ዘመን። ንጉሥ አምሃራ ብለው ይኩኖ አምላክን
the church politics and supremacy issue በጣም it's well known in the church history በደንብ እቀበለዋለሁ። ግን racism involved እንደሆነ
ሱፕሪማሲው ለምን መጣ ነው የኔ ጥያቄ እኮ። ሱፕሪማሲው ለምን መጣ? ከየት መጣ? what's the motivation? እና ከድሮ ጀምሮ there was a negative view against black people historically. ምንድነው, by the way, there's some research I should say, like for example slavery took the form that it did after modern slavery milish 17th to 18th centuries in the West between black and white people. You don't know. That's not to say that slavery didn't happen before. However, some people make this argument to be like, okay, well, the slavers before weren't that bad. Like today, when you say slavery, it's like the worst thing possible. But before slavery wasn't that bad. And that there's elements of truth in that. It wasn't like all, but there were cases where the slavers were really, really bad. Maybe not compared to what we saw in America in particularly, but it was still bad. The same thing with racism. Of course, there's different ways of understanding white supremacy and like all these things that developed much, much later on. I'm not claiming it was the same form of racism. It was not. I want to be very clear here. But there was racism in that. We are different from these folks because they're black. That one existed because we see it in the text. መልካም ምንም ችግር የለውም. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it.
አንድ ምናልባት የመጀመሪያ ገዝ ልቦለድ ላይ የሆነ ፕሮጀክት አለና ስለ እሱ ለማናገር ፈልጌ ነበር። ፎሎው ባክ ቢያደርጉኝ መልዕክት
እሺ በጣም አመሰግናለሁ። ቴንክ ዩ ፎር ካሚንግ። እሺ የአባቴ ብሩክ Oh, by the way, the vintage mom, ancient racism toward African descent was rampant with Muslims too. I agree. But a lot of the times when I talk about colonialism, I'm talking about like this Western and African perspective, but there's the Arabization aspect that is also something that we can't forget. Ya Abate Burukan. Oh, okay. Can you unmute now? Yeah, Bati Burukan.
I think he need help to unmute himself, I guess.
I'm trying. I'm trying. I'm sending you an invitation to unmute. Okay, let me try to disconnect you. Not and then I'm request and then you can come up. Request again and then I'll bring you up. Let's see if that works.
Oh no, I think you can hear me.
Yes.
Thank you, Diakon, for your interesting and evidence-full presentation. It was an exciting. I really appreciate what you are doing now. It's from Addis Ababa University. So I agree with most ideas you raise, but I want to talk with two major issues. The first one is, do you think the Egyptian or the Coptic Church has an intention of race? For what purpose? Is that economical or is that political, or can we suggest it's both political and economical? Because I believe that there were different setbacks that put on our religion, and it has an impact on our economy. Even later on, it has some impact on our political integration. The second one is...
let me answer question by question.
Okay.
So the question is, do I think this was politically motivated or economically motivated, or by both? I will say the reverse. So in my book, the way I actually tackle this problem is a little bit reverse order. That is, there was a race motivation that led to the political and the economic outcome. I'll repeat this. The political and the economic negative results that we witnessed, that I think almost everybody said they agreed with, comes from the motivation of race. I think at that time, there was just this kind of negative view against Black people. By the way, this is this view, I read about it extensively in my book, of fascination about these Black people. They're exotic in this faraway land, whatever they're doing. And the Greeks, like Homer, for example, were obsessed with they knew there was a society there. They didn't know what to do with them. So this concept of okay, the other, right? And this is what I was saying to my sister before, this concept of otherizing, we're here and then they're there. Us versus them approach existed way before Christianity. So this is why I'm saying there was this kind of field of just, how do we deal with these Africans? We don't really know what to do with them, right? And just because Christianity came, it doesn't mean that some of these philosophies changed overnight. Unfortunately, we see the ramifications in the writings of early Egyptian fathers. So they had this, I think, this perspective that led to the economic and political result. That was the result. Motivation was race.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And related to this point, when we say that the gospel or the according to Jacob appreciates us, salvation could be possible with faith and job, or faith and work. It's better to say this one. But when you observe what we're in our religion, we are just abstained from working for a number of days because of celebrations for saints. So when I try to balance what the Bible say and what we are really exercise, it is not just balanced. It seems opposite. So this is the major impact that we are carried on right now. In that way, the economic issue outweighs the political one. But if we rethink it again, the political energy may motivate the economic one. So if you are economically strong, then your political strength could be more. So what they do is the reverse one. They pressure us to abstain from work because of several reasons that could be difficult to mention there. Then we are becoming poor for a number of years, more than 1,000 or more than 100 of years. Then we are again politically lower. Then this is the point that what they want. So I think this is acceptable between us. The other point is
one quick thing here. I think I've heard this argument before. For example, there's a lot of days of celebration, and the more that people are celebrating, that means that the Ethiopians were less economically viable. I've heard this argument before. I'm not sure I really buy it. I don't know where the evidence is to say more like days of holidays yields necessarily to economic decline. In fact, if you see modern era in a lot of European countries, they've shown a direct relationship with more holidays with higher effectiveness of work. Not only that, I make the argument in a lot of the societies that we kind of make fun of, for example, like in Ethiopia, we make fun of people like, when they go to work, they go in at like 9 o'clock, they check their email, 10 o'clock, they go out for a coffee, they come back, work for an hour, take lunch, go out, they socialize, whatever. They never work. Ha ha ha, all these crazy people. But at the same time, when they're going out and drinking coffee, they're having a group therapy, and checking in on their mental status. So I think these kind of studies are important to recognize of like some of the systems that were put in place, I may not be a bad thing. I think more investigation is needed before we make serious claims like that, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. So let me go to the second question. Actually, I don't know where the source is. Why they say we are the mother and Tip is the daughter, which is very difficult actually. According to Frumentius that you said before, I don't think that was the first moment to introduce Christianity to Ethiopia and to make it the state religion. I don't think so. Within a moment, how you can introduce Christianity and doing Christianity all over the country, they're making the religion of the state. Oh, I don't think so. So there is purely Christianity in Ethiopia. Then Frumentius came and developed on that. Then Ezana and Ezana, whatever they are, because there is a root, they make the state religion. But still, in many different books, they say we're the mother for the Ethiopian church. I don't know what the definition of mother in terms of spirituality. There is one church, and that was built based on God. If there is a mother in church, it must be God. Otherwise, I don't know how where ancestors are from their church. It's too much emotional, and this is not logical actually. So, and the most devastating point that I see today is they are communicating with different bishops in Ethiopia recently. Oh, this is very rubbish actually. I don't know what fruit they expect. And the other point is you can understand that many people in Egypt were turned to Muslim, but still their eye is on Ethiopian issues. It is another point that we have to discuss. And I cannot wait what your next topic is. I'm very happy, Dr. Molna. I'm very happy to know you. Thank you very much, and you can reflect on this point. So.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So these are the points that I'm gonna get at next week. So today I just want to talk about the motivation. So these are the motivations. This is how things occurred, and next week we're gonna talk about what these motivations did. So I think we have enough to say that they had like some negative ideology about Ethiopia. And it wasn't just an ideology, but they acted on it. And we're going to see what that action looked like next week. And then, of course, this Saturday, we'll do this same thing in Amharic. I wonder how that's going to go. I started off today saying that I have a very unpopular topic. And sure enough, I think they were engaging conversations, by the way. Like, I really liked in these conversations, but I do see more of a pushback today than other days. Usually the pushbacks come when I do my topics in Amharic. So if I get this much kind of pushback on English, I wonder how it will be on Saturday. I'm looking forward to it. In conclusion, I just want to end up like where I started off with, and I even showed you guys the video. These are like these views are only like excused by Ethiopians. I think it's a problem. It's a huge issue. And if you just think about like, when you just take a step back and you look at these texts and you think about like this concept of like, okay, well, Ethiopians must get their bishop from Ethiopia, and then you wonder why. Where is it? Like our brother said, why? Like why? What is the justification? Right? And that was the thing that was really bothering me. Going back to this idea of Moses the Black, Black being a possible indication of his disability. I mean, why? And if it just stopped at these writings, that's one thing, but it turns to action. And why I know I'm a monk company is because what we'll see next week is the saints of Zagwe, like Lalibala, had a major problem with the Egyptian church, and they said no more. Lalibala is a saint. I rather refer to Lalibala than what someone wrote about other saints by that early Egyptian fathers who we said are writing racist comments. So I think say we have to wake up. We genuinely have to wake up. We have to care. I think it does matter. I know I'm inferior to anyone. Agazi, the land of the free, that means something, right? From the spiritual sense, why does it matter? It's a doctrinal issue. There's no such thing, like our brother said, there's no such thing as a mother and daughter church. None. It doesn't exist. There's nothing out there. So we've got to start correcting these narratives Because the end result is, like I showed you guys on the YouTube video, they're coming into the country to say these people are not Christians. My tradition is important to me. That's who I am. My faith is important to me. My country is important to me. I don't want to lose it. Later on, by the way, when you guys watch the YouTube videos, they're teaching them their own Muslims. Not Yaridawi, but like their own kind of Muslims. And all of this stuff, all these chants, all this tradition is in danger if we don't protect it. And we can only protect it when we understand the value that we have in it. If you think that a lot of the things are unrelated, I don't want to get into politics, but you guys could see the statements of Abu Tawdros and what he said to the Arab world. You tell me that has nothing to do with this power dynamic. If that's the case, then why are why are Abu Tawdros looking towards the Arab world instead of the Christian Ethiopians? You tell me that. If these things don't matter, if religion and politics are really separate, then you tell me why. You tell me why these things are happening. Things don't happen out of nowhere. And I'm going to say this point, and I promise I'll let everybody go. You know what really gets under my skin? And now I'm specifically talking to the Ethiopian Orthodox brothers and sisters, is we're so good at reacting. Like, we're so good at reacting when something occurs, and I'll let you define what something is. We are good at posting, going to protests, and we are great at like saying, there's a problem, everybody unite. We are great at doing this for a week, maybe two. Then we forget about it. Then when something else happens, we wake up like it's something new happened. How could this happen? Oh my goodness, all this stuff for a week or two, and then we forget about it. We're never proactive. We never take the position of like, okay, there's nothing happening right now. Like right now, there's nothing happening. But let's take a proactive approach in agency to say, I will tell my story. I will correct the wrongdoings. I will do this. I wish we got into this philosophy, not waiting to something bad happening and then saying, hey, let's fix it for 2 weeks and then leaving it behind. There has to be a better approach. My vision, my hope is that by talking about this, number one, we can learn how to talk about history. Number two, we can take agency, control of our history and not let others dictate how the story should be told. That's all that I got for you today. I love you guys. I care about you. I hope all of you have a blessed night. I will meet again on Saturday, 11:30 for the Amharic version of the same topic. Feel free to come back and support. Please like, subscribe, share this channel so others can hear it. God bless all of you.